Hello and welcome back to another ProGuides video. There's been new synergies and new champions released in the last few patches, so what's next? Well, Riot has announced that 9.19 will bring 11 new items. There are also major reworks being done for a few current items and new item mechanics being added as well. This is a game-changing update as Teamfight Tactics is one of the most item-reliant auto-battlers out there. However, let's not skip over 9.18 patch either, as there are a few more balances coming out as well. But before we begin, remember to click on our link below in our description to see more in-depth guides, builds, and ways to win you your next games. There are many courses designed by pro players within the top 1% of the game to teach you the meta and how to effectively climb up the ladder. Now, without further ado, let's begin with the PBE patch notes for 9.18. Riot has announced that they are now looking to slow down the updates, so no B patch this week, and most likely none in the future unless something is urgent. With the new items being delayed until 9.19, we expect 9.18 to be similar to a B patch with just a few balances. The most notable change in PBE regarding 9.18 is that Wild is going to be reworked once again. Wild has never really shined on their own, and was never crucial to a composition. It's a nice buff to be added on, but was not the star of the game. The winning factor usually in a Wild build is normally on the shapeshifter, Shyvana, Gnar, or Swain. Riot has finally decided to let them shine. The first tier only got a small buff where instead of 10%, Wild now has 12% bonus attack speed, which stacks up to 5 times. However, the final tier with Wild is the scary one. All allies will get the 12% bonus and their basic attacks cannot be dodged. For just having 4 units on your team, you can now get all 9 to basically have equipped a rapid fire cannon. They may not get the double attack range, but Wild will become a hard counter against Yordles and Phantom Dancer. Yordles may be receiving a large buff in 9.19 as well, which is why this may be necessary, but we'll explain more about Yordles later. We expect this change for Wild to cause them to rise greatly on the tier list. Another notable thing in PBE right now is that they will make it slightly harder to level up. From levels 4 to 7, it will take an additional 2 XP for each level. From levels 7 to 8, it's an additional 4 XP, and then level 8 to 9, it's plus 6 XP. In total, it'll take 16 extra XP to get to level 9. Although it sounds minor, it actually plays a huge difference because every gold matters in TFT. This will make players adapt to a different strategy in order to economy properly for the late game. As of now, that's all that's been released about 9.18, but here comes the exciting part for 9.19. New item mechanics. An item that is currently exclusive to the neutral rounds will now spawn. Currently, it's being called as NEEKO'S Help, which will be the only consumable item in the game. NEEKO'S Help, when consumed, will add a 1-star copy of any champion that you currently own. Have you ever struggled because you felt that RNG was terrible and you were never able to get your Cho'Gath to level 2 even though no one else is running Cho'Gath? Well, NEEKO got you. Getting any units to tier 3 or an epic or legendary to tier 2 is an incredible power boost. This will easily become one of the most wanted items for players. And not only is NEEKO'S Help being added, but champions can also be dropped in a box as well. This is all still in the designing phase, so we're unsure what the percentages are that a legendary will drop versus a common, or if your level affects it, but this does incentivize players to always leave a spot open on their bench. The reason is that if you have a full bench, the champion will automatically be converted to gold. If you are looking for a Kayle to complete your Nobles composition, there's a chance you may have just missed it by having a full bench. And, well, that would just be the worst feeling. NEEKO'S Help will also not work if you try to use it while you have a full bench, but you'll retain the item. So, hearing this, many players may feel that RNG is becoming worse. However, Riot is going to implement a whole new item distribution system in order to narrow the percentage between the best scenario and worst scenario. During these rounds, you will now get the chance to have a common, uncommon, or a shiny rare box. A loot table will also be released so you can see the possibility of each. So yes, even though there is that chance that you were unlucky and got gold compared to a player who got NEEKO'S Help, at least it wouldn't be as often as before, where it feels like every game you play, you only received gold. So enough about the neutral rounds, let's get into the new items in patch 9.19. First up is a new item component, Sparring Gloves. Sparring Gloves is basically your Yordles and Assassins combined. This item will provide your unit with 10% dodge chance and 10% critical chance. We expect this item to jump straight to the S tier, making it one of the top priorities for players to aim for during the first carousel. It has both a defensive and an offensive mechanic, which allows more flexibility to which units can use this item. Once an item is combined, it can either jump to 20% dodge chance or 20% crit chance. And not to mention, some of these new items are OP. Beginning first with Thief's Gloves. Thief's Gloves brings a whole new mechanic that we've never seen before. For every planning phase, it will now spawn 2 temporary items. You are not allowed to equip any other items on the unit holding it either. This is because Thief's Gloves will automatically equip the 2 temp items as its remaining slots. The type of temporary items can be anything. You can either get a recurve bow or an insanely strong item like FON for 1 turn. The quality of the item you get will also be dependent on your level. Although this brings another RNG aspect to the game, it does sound extremely fun. The item, unlike others, does proc during the planning phase instead of combat, so it allows you to strategize properly as well. We expect this to be overpowered for players, be it early or late game. In the early game, you are essentially getting 3 items for the price of 1, and in the late game, it'll incentivize players to level so they can get higher quality items. Next up, we have Hand of Justice, which requires sparring gloves and a Tear of Goddess. We have another RNG item where the wearer will randomly gain either 40% increased damage or 40 life on hit for each round. Although players may have a preference for one over the other, we see this item to be perfect for the carries such as Jinx, Ashe, or Draven. Either one will be a significant buff for them. Moving along, we have Arcane Gauntlet, made of a needlessly large rod and sparring gloves. The item will now allow abilities to critically strike. So, you know how Karthus or Aurelian Souls sometimes can destroy 70% of your entire team's health? Well, let's add the possibility to make that 70% into 100%. This is a buff to Sorcerers and also a buff to Phantom Dancer. It will become a crucial item as it does dodge the critical damage of abilities as well. With Arcane Gauntlet, we also have Iceborne Gauntlet, which uses sparring gloves and Chain Vest. This item procs based off of a prerequisite that your equipped unit needs to dodge first. Once they do, it will then create an expandable 30% attack speed slow zone. Riot hasn't confirmed how quickly they plan to have this zone expand, or if it'll cover the entire board yet, but we expect the radius to have potential to become fairly large, making it a huge advantage for your comps. Yordle units will become a priority for this team, along with making sure the unit have other sparring gloves items. Our next item is extremely unique and perfect for your carry units as well. It's Quicksilver, made of sparring gloves and Negatron Cloak. The item will save your equipped unit from the next crowd control effect. It also refreshes every 5 seconds, so unless you have some proper tier items, it's very possible that the equipped unit will just be immune to any CC throughout the fight. CC has always been a top priority for both compositions, either a Sejuani Freeze, Cho'Gath's Knockup, or Kennen's Stun. It becomes the winning condition of a fight. We expect this item to become one of the best defensive games in the game. Hope you guys are enjoying all the new mechanics that's coming to play with these items, because with the CC Protector, it's now time to add a CC item as well. Next up is Backhand. The item allows the wearer to start off with a spell shield, and when an enemy breaks the shield, they would get stunned for a long time. Although this item does sound very appealing, especially hearing about a long stun, we feel that it could be very difficult to manage. There's the possibility that the stun can land on their hyper carry, or it could also stun the Fiora that happened to be the one to break the shield. Positions will probably become even more important to try to narrow down the units you want stunned with this item. Moving on, we have the item that can arguably become the strongest item in the game, Repeating Crossbow. When the equipped is dead, the item's effect will pass on to a new ally, granting them an additional 20% critical change and 20% attack speed. However, this will continue and stack for each unit with each pass of the item. There's been many times where you have killed off the majority of the enemy's team, and you face the final boss that is already stacked with a bunch of items like a Shyvana, Draven, or Ashe. Time after time, you struggle to beat them. Well, let's give them steroids now. The item will become incredibly strong in either scenario of the pass, ending up on your carry unit last or first. If it lands first, great, you just buffed your carry for the entire combat. If it lands on it late in the combat, also great. Now they're benefiting from multiple stacks. We expect this item to potentially become overpowered in the late game as you level higher. On to the next one is the Cute Mittens. We finally have another spatula item that will add the class synergy Yordles. At first glance, you might just pass over this item as it's simply another situational item. However, as mentioned before, Yordles may be getting a large upgrade soon. 9 Yordles is going to be added into the meta, and the way to achieve it is only with this item. Riot has not confirmed any new Yordles being added, as they expect it to be heavily reliant on you to get to 9 units and making 3 mittens. Now you may think that that seems really impossible and ridiculous that the bar is set so high. However, it's actually fair because the 9 Yordles buff will become a 100% chance to dodge. Yep, you heard that right. No basic attacks will hit any of your Yordle units. Unless you're running a wild compositions or sorcerers that can one-shot your enemy units, it's almost a guarantee loss for any other compositions. So before we get into our last 2 items, it's important to learn about the current items that will be reworked first. Infinite Edge will now be made of sparring gloves and a BF sword. This might incentivize players to use the item more as it is not taking up 2 swords, which is crucial for a GA or a lifesteal item. Additionally, Wild Assassins may prove to become the deadliest composition, making IE stronger than ever. Rapid Fire Cannon will also lose its effect of always being able to hit. The item has always been a bit too overpowered with doubling the attack range and giving the equipped unit attack speed. It'll still be a very strong item and useful for rangers to keep their corner positions, but may not be abused as much as before. And lastly, Sword of Divine is finally removed. The item has always been in the last tier, and it's perfect timing to get rid of it as we have all the new additions coming this 9.19. It's important to note these changes because 2 new items will replace these reworked or removed items. First, instead of IE, the 2 BF swords will now make Lord's Edge. Lord's Edge is essentially a large damage boost for a unit. Like Thief's Gloves, this has to be the only item equipped on a unit as it will gain a BF sword on takedown for the champion that holds the item. Although having such extra damage is incredibly strong, we're not sure how it'll fare in the future meta as it does require 2 swords, which is essential to many S and A tier items. And lastly, we have Last Whisper. Fear not, the RFC effect that was removed has been added back to this item. Last Whisper cannot miss, and will also deal true damage equal to 5% of the target's maximum health. It's perfect for getting through the frontline tanks. And that was all the new items for 9.19. Although the game has been getting more balanced, we do hope that Riot brings back the B patches, as this will probably be one of the biggest updates yet, and we expect some of these items to be too overpowered. But nevertheless, we are extremely excited to see these new items in play. Make sure to leave a comment below on how you feel about Riot's decisions and all the new stuff that's coming out. Like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.